What is up, everybody? Hyun here. Today we're going to be reacting to another scary story called My Mentally Ill Son. Okay. Alright. Let's get to it. What does this have for us? Wait, let me turn that volume.
I used to live with my husband and our lovely son. However, our family was unhappy. We had always struggled with poverty ever since my son was born. At times, we suffered hunger, and it caused many arguments between us. My husband hadn't worked for 13 years and spent his days drinking. We were just barely getting by with whatever money I could bring. In time, we found out that our son suffered from mental health problems. However, I ended up keeping him in the house because I didn't think it was too serious. We'd never had any major accidents after all, until the incident. One day I brought home a watermelon that I had received from one of my friends. It was sweet.
All because the watermelon had something to do with it.
Delicious. After finishing the watermelon, my son was so happy. He said it was the best thing he'd ever eaten. I was pleased that I could share it with him, but no one expected the disaster it would bring. In the following weeks, he became madly obsessed with watermelons. He pestered me day after day to buy him another, and started to get angry when I told him that we just didn't have the money. Once I woke up to him standing by the bed, staring down at me.
I want to eat a watermelon! A sweet watermelon!
His frantic shrieks scared me so.
Okay.
Badly. I started to take money away from our necessities, just so that I could buy him a watermelon or two every day. Whenever he woke up, he would look for the watermelons and eat them. However, he kept saying that the watermelons I brought home didn't taste the same. Not like the one my friend had given me. Sometimes he'd even throw away the half-eaten melons in anger and scream his rage. I felt so helpless, but still, I didn't want to take my child to a mental hospital. So, I decided to wait a little longer, hoping that his condition would improve. And it did. He started to seem a little happier, more stable again. I even got brave enough to tell him that our financial situation had worsened and that I couldn't buy watermelons for a while. He seemed to take the news with surprising patience. I was relieved.
That's good.
Then, one morning, I woke up to my son's screams.
Where's the watermelon? Give me the watermelon!
My husband and I rushed to the kitchen. I could see our son rummaging through the fridge and kitchen cabinets. When he noticed us, he started to stumble over. There was a kitchen knife.
Oh no. Oh no. The worst is about to happen. No. He's gonna stab one of them.
In his hand.
Where's my watermelon? Watermelon. A sweet watermelon.
His eyes seemed to roll in his head in an unnatural, terrifying way.
Okay.
And then, suddenly, without any warning, he stabbed my husband to the side of his head.
Say what? She stabbed him on the side of the head? Yeah. She, did I say no? No, never mind.
Fresh blood splashed all over. I could just stand there in utter shock. It felt like I wasn't really there. It just couldn't be real. Then my son shouted with a wide smile,
I found it!
That finally snapped me back to reality. I started screaming and called the police immediately. By the time they arrived, my husband was already dead. They found our son holding his head, crying and mumbling that the watermelon tasted odd. When he saw me with the police, he tried to come at me with the knife too.
Another watermelon.
The police overpowered him and took the knife away.
Another watermelon. Oh.
At that point, I just passed out. After that, my son was confined to a mental hospital.
Good.
The nurses tell me that he's still trying to search for a sweet watermelon.
Hmm. All right. Okay. Well, that was fun. Yeah, that was fun. Okay, I have time for one more, I think. Yeah, one more. Okay, so this. Sorry about that.
You discovered
Yeah.
If you're a gamer, this can get you awesome deals on gaming.
I am.
Capital One Shopping
okay.
is a free extension that.
Okay, bye. Alright, so this is the secret of the homeless. Scary story. Alright. Let's get to it. Okay. Alright. Everybody being scared.
I often use the subway to go to
Okay, too loud.
work in the morning. One day, when I was waiting for the train, I noticed a homeless man standing in a corner of the subway station, muttering to himself as people passed by. He was holding out a cup and seemed to be begging for spare change. A fat woman passed by the homeless man, and I distinctly heard him say, "Pig." Wow, I thought to myself. This homeless man is insulting people, and he still expects them to give him money? Then, a tall businessman went by, and the homeless guy muttered, "Human." Human? I can't argue with that. Obviously, he was human. The next day, I arrived early at the subway station and had some time to kill, so I decided to stand close to the homeless man and listen to his strange mutterings. A thin, haggard-looking man passed in front of him, and I heard the homeless guy mutter, "Cow." Cow? I thought. The man was much too skinny to be a cow. He looked more like a turkey or a chicken to me. A minute or so later, a fat man went by, and the homeless man said, "Potato." Potato? I was under the impression that he called all fat people pig. That day, at work, I couldn't stop thinking about the homeless man and his puzzling behavior. I kept trying to find some logic or pattern in what he was muttering. Perhaps he has some kind of psychic ability, I thought. Maybe he knows what these people were in a previous life. Many people believe in reincarnation. I observed the homeless man many or pattern in what he was muttering. Perhaps he has some kind of psychic ability, I thought. Maybe he knows what these people were in a previous life. Many people believe in reincarnation. I observed the homeless man many times and began to think my theory was right. I often heard him
Not used to standing.
calling people things like rabbit, or onion, or sheep, or tomato. One day, curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to ask him what was going on. As I walked up to him, he looked at me and said, "Bread." I tossed some money into his cup and asked him if he had some kind of psychic ability. The homeless man smiled and said, "Yes, indeed. I do have a psychic ability. It is an ability I obtained years ago, but it's not what you might expect. I can't tell the future or read minds or anything like that." Then what is your ability? I asked eagerly. The ability is merely to know the last thing somebody ate, he said. I laughed because I realized he was right. He said bread. The last thing I had eaten for breakfast that day was toast. I walked away shaking my head. Of all the psychic abilities someone could have, that one must be the most useless.
Well, this one doesn't really seem that interesting. Yeah. I'm gonna go in office and record. So, since it's free now, it's not in there. I'm not allowed to record when it's in there. But who knows? Anyway, so that was the secret of the homeless. So I have time for one more. Okay, that is bright enough. Put on the window. It's just the door open. There we go. You guys can see perfect. Aaliyah. Fine. Alright. Whoa, I found a dead girl's body in the bushes. That catches my attention. 14 horror stories animated. Alright. How about no? Because I already did a whole ass video about that. No, I will do that next time. Okay, we'll do this one. I found a dead. But I found. We're gonna be doing I found a dead girl's body in the bush. Like I said, 2 times. I don't know why I keep saying. Okay, skip that. Alright. So, oh shit, you guys can. You know what? You guys can probably. Yeah. Alright. Alright. Let's do this. Okay.
I used to live in this small, sleepy forest town, which at the time was notorious for being the most boring place to raise a family in the Midwest. That never bothered me very much. I liked the isolation and the privacy, and the knowledge that those late-breaking violent stories you hear on the news would never involve us. I lived about a minute away from a large open field, where I could easily walk for about 15 minutes without ever having to set foot on concrete. One day last summer, I was taking my dog Oscar for a walk across the field, pretty early in the morning as I usually did. But today, something happened to catch my eye immediately after I went through the fence. About 15 meters to the left of the entry gate is an old fishing pit that was surrounded by overgrown bushes with barbed wire. So I heard something rustling from the undergrowth, and I stopped to investigate. I noticed the outline of someone standing under the shadows of the trees, staring at me without moving. Completely taken aback and slightly unnerved, I decided to just keep walking my dog as if I hadn't seen anything. I usually play music on my phone, but after that chilling encounter...
Speaking of phone, I'll be right back. I always forget my phone.
I had no intention of doing so, just in case that person decided to try and come at me from behind. After walking for another 15 minutes, I completed my loop around the field and was making my way back when I noticed a tall man walking from the grassy area around the fishing pit to the gate. It was hard to tell because of the distance, but I would say he was around 30 years old and well built. I made sure to keep my distance and decided to play fetch with my dog for a while and give him time to leave, as my gut feeling was telling me that it wasn't a good idea to approach him. After a short while, I made sure the coast was clear and called my dog back over to me and reattached his leash. As we were making our way out of the field through the gate where we originally entered, Oscar started pulling at his leash and sniffing around the bushes where I had first noticed the silhouette of the man. I tugged at the leash and called my dog's name, but he refused to obey, which was strange because he usually didn't give me any trouble. I walked towards him to grab his collar, nervously scanning the area again for the strange man, when I noticed a piece of blue cloth on the other side of the barbed wire divider that surrounds the fishing pit. I tied my dog to a nearby stump, carefully climbed over the fence, and went to investigate. This next part is very difficult for me to recount, because while a part of me is pleased my actions that day brought light to a violent crime, and brought closure, however horrific, to someone's family, another part of me wishes I had just been less patient and kept tugging at my dog, because the nightmares have yet to stop. There was a body of a young girl covered in bruises all over her face and lacerations to her wrists. Fresh blood was pooling under the gash in her neck.
Damn. Man, people are scary these days. It's scary to go outside, man.
Her eyes were all puffy like she had been
All because of this internet, man.
crying for a very long time. I couldn't even begin to imagine what she had been put through. After calling the police, I sat by the gate and waited what was probably only about 8 minutes, but it felt like a lifetime. Even though I obviously knew she was dead, when I overheard the ambulance attendant confirm it, I threw up all over the grass. The police tried asking me questions, and I told them what I could recall about the stranger, while my dog whined and tried to nuzzle me while I sat on the grass. A week later, I read in the newspaper that the young girl was a 12-year-old named Megan that had gone missing no more than 5 minutes away from my house. She had been sexually assaulted before being murdered.
Wow.
After 3 months of continuous searching, nobody matched the vague description of the man I had given the police. More than a few times, I've noticed people in my own town giving me sideways glances that feel more like suspicion than pity, and that's almost more than I can bear. Please just remember to keep things in perspective, no matter how shitty a day you're having, however many trivial inconveniences you have to endure. You were at least lucky enough not to have found a dead child while enjoying your daily routine. My thoughts and prayers go out to that poor girl's family.
That's messed up, man. Wow. Wow. Okay. It's only 17 minutes on the video, so we will do another reset. A man tried to kill it. Oh yeah, this will be a good one. Yes. And that is not a good one. Ah, there we go. Now that's a good one. Alright, so a man tried to kill us while we went hiking. Or went on camping, not hiking. Technically it's the same. But no, it never.
This happened to myself and a friend of mine. We're both 23-year-old males. We decided to go on a 2-night backpacking camping trip to the Adirondack Mountains of New York. We are both very comfortable with nature and spend a lot of time outside hunting, camping, and fishing. We hiked about 5 miles to get to a small lake so we could set up camp on the beach. We didn't really expect to run into anyone else. Our first night there, as we were sitting around the fire, we saw a flashlight moving on the other side of the lake around 10:30. This was fairly unusual. However, we did not think much of it. But as time went on, this flashlight kept moving around the lake, getting closer to our campsite. We kept discussing who could possibly be wandering around the woods in the middle of the night. We did not want to deal with any unwelcomed guests. Once it was clear that the person, or people, were heading for our campsite, we moved off into the nearby woods to see who wandered up. I took a small axe with me and my friend had a .22 rifle. Now we weren't expecting any trouble, and we certainly didn't want to make any, but we figured we might as well cover our bases. Now the moment of truth. The flashlight comes near the light of our fire, and it's one man. He has a beard and was probably in his mid-40s. The scary part was that he was carrying what turned out to be a pump-action shotgun. He walked around our campsite a few times, and then proceeded to enter our tent. After rummaging around for about a minute, he came out and started yelling,
"I know you're up there. Why don't you come and say hello?"
My friend and I remained motionless under a hemlock tree about 50 yards away. That's when the man proceeded to fire his shotgun into the woods, not too far from where we were. He also swung his flashlight around several times. After what felt like hours, he grabbed my friend's backpack and a few articles of clothing that we had drying near the fire and threw them in to burn. My friend had the .22 rifle trained at the man. He asked me if he should shoot. I told him absolutely not, unless he spots us and starts pointing the gun in our direction. Thankfully, the man moved off after a while. We waited until his flashlight was on the other side of the lake. Then we ran out and grabbed everything we could fit in my pack and took off. It was now 2 or 3 a.m. We ran up the trail with our flashlights and made it back to my car as the sun was coming up. We immediately went to the police department and reported it, where we also spoke with some forest rangers. And that was it. I still haven't heard anything back from the police, and this experience creeped the hell out of both of us.
Wow, man, it's not like from what I watched today, man. People are creepy and scary, man. There's not really any good ones. So I'm gonna end it here, and hope you guys enjoyed it. Liked it, like and subscribe, obviously, please. And I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.